the Q&A session, please type * hands up into the chat box so that we can cue people speaking. And please do not interrupt people mid-sentence. And last but not least, I encourage you to share the knowledge of this session with your family, friends, co-workers, or a stranger on the park bench. My name is Leon Moore, also known as Jasmine Diane Moore, your DPCA voting representative for Democrats Abroad Switzerland. And joining in on today's call is our co-host, Sharon Hatchett and Dr. Ava Thompson Greenwell. Ms. Hatchett currently serves as the president of Together is Better Alliance, a nonprofit committed to dismantling systemic racism throughout education. Prior to her retirement, Ms. Hatchett practiced law for close to 30 years with a global automotive manufacturer based in Detroit, Michigan, where her legal practice was primarily focused on international legal matters. In doing so, she traveled extensively from Detroit and worked as an expat in Zurich, Switzerland, and Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Ms. Hatchett also has a long history of volunteerism, including prior to her retirement. Currently, she serves on the League of American Orchestras Board of Directors, the Advisory Board for Coaster Cycles, and the Council of Legal Advisors for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Ms. Hatchett is also an active supporter of the Chicago Sinfonietta, a classical music orchestra formed in 1987 by Maestro Paul Freeman, a Black man committed to providing people of color access to a career path in the classical music field. Dr. Ava Thompson Greenwell is a Chicago native and the director-producer of Mandela in Chicago, a documentary film about the city's anti-apartheid movement. She's also author of Ladies Leading, the Black Women Who Control Television News. Dr. Greenwell, an academic life coach, has been a freelance correspondent for WGN-TV and Chicago Tonight, a PBS news program. She also worked as a reporter for WFLA-TV in Tampa, Florida, WCCO-TV in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and WEHT-TV in Evansville, Illinois. We're also joined by our co-chair and Zoom tech guru, Elizabeth Voss, our members and volunteers, Miriam, Stacy, Abby, Zachary, and Liz, who will be our breakout room hosts. Juneteenth is also known as the Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day. It celebrates the emancipation of those who had been enslaved in the US. Juneteenth commemorates June 19, 1865, when Union soldiers brought the news of freedom to the enslaved Black people in Galveston, Texas, 2 months after the Confederacy had surrendered. That was also about 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in the Southern states. It's the first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Jr. Day was created in 1983. And without any further ado, I'm very honored to open the floor to Sharon Hatchett and Dr. Ava Thompson Greenwell.
Thank you so much, Jazz, for giving us the opportunity to participate, and to all of you at Democrats Abroad. It means a lot to us to join you today. What I want to do, in being mindful of the time and the reason for all of you being here on a Saturday evening, is to jump right into our discussion of the documentary. And Ava, I'm going to refer to Dr. Greenwell as Ava. We know each other from a prior screening of the documentary, so we'll just go by that going forward. I also like to welcome, I believe, one of our TiBA board members, Amania Drain, was able to join us, even though she's at a celebration of Juneteenth herself in the Chicago area. Can you, Dr. Greenwell, and I'm going to take it for granted that all of you watched her very impactful documentary, I'm hoping so. Can you, Ava, speak about the documentary, and in particular, what prompted you to produce it? I think there's an important story there that is worth sharing with those on the call with us today.
Absolutely. First of all, let me say thank you. And if you start to see any unstableness, please let me know in the chat, because I am in an area where there's some storms and out. And I will turn my camera off, make sure that you can hear me. It's just, okay. So let me go ahead and turn it off. So just to make sure, I just want to make sure you knew I was there, that I'm here. And hopefully that will be, okay, much better. Okay, great. So this project started because I began leading a South Africa journalism residency program for my university, where we are sending students to work as junior reporters in newsrooms in Cape Town and Johannesburg. And so in doing that, my predecessor would occasionally bring in a Chicagoan to the class. It's a prep class that we offer to the students before they go out so they can learn about the history and issues and politics and culture of the country. And so when he would bring folks in, they would just have such fascinating stories about their role in Chicago's anti-apartheid movement. And because by that time, the movement was sort of in its heyday, I was already in college and I had moved away from the area, I really wasn't aware of what Chicagoans had done. And I'm a Chicagoan. And so I really felt like we needed to start bringing in more Chicagoans so that the students who are 10 miles from the city could know who the people are right behind, right in the area. They know who these people are. History is a funny thing. It often feels so far and so amorphous. And so what I wanted to do was bring that history to the students directly so that they can hear from the people who were actually involved. And so that was my primary goal in putting this documentary together. And I also knew that these folks who were approaching their 70s and 80s wouldn't be around forever to be able to tell their stories. And it's so important to let the person who lived it tell the story, because they're going to tell it the way they saw it, as opposed to other people who might have a different spin on it. So that was my main priority. But the full circle moment for me is if you watch the documentary, you see the sign that says Free South Africa in front of Trinity Church. That was a church that I lived not too far from and had passed that church many times and had seen that sign when I was in high school. And I really didn't know that much about it. I didn't know what it was really about. And so to be able to go back and interview Reverend Jeremiah Wright and really get a better understanding of what the sign was about and the importance of that sign was just, it's very impactful for me. And then the other final thing I'll say, Sharon, going back to this issue of folks being able to tell their own stories. It took me 4 years to do this documentary. I started in 2016. And already 4 of the people in the documentary have died. And as a matter of fact, even since we spoke, Sharon, in May, there's been an additional person, Mike Elliott, who was the unofficial videographer of the movement. He passed away, and I attended his funeral virtually about 2 weeks ago in the Chicago area. So this is the importance, I think, of making sure people get to tell their own stories while they still can.
Thank you so much. Now, with regard to your reference to the Free South Africa sign and Trinity Church and Pastor Jeremiah Wright, can you also speak about the touching aspect of your documentary relative to those on Robben Island who were imprisoned and their having heard about the sign and their commitment relative to making sure that a connection be made with the people of Chicago? So
it's interesting because the story that Jeremiah Wright tells, where he becomes very emotional about these South Africans who come to his church for an evening service on a Sunday, and they begin to stand up and say, thank you, thank you, thank you for being there for us when we couldn't be there for ourselves. It was really, I asked him a question about his legacy, and I didn't expect that. Anybody who knows Jeremiah, and you can see in some of the earlier videos, he is a fiery preacher. And if you followed his infamous time in the media when Barack Obama was going through his first campaign for president here in the United States, you know that he was at one time Barack and Michelle Obama's pastor. They attended Trinity United Church of Christ. So this was a church that really was very socially conscious before socially conscious, became a common thing. And their church members had been traveling to South Africa for years. And so many of them were already involved in the Free South Africa movement. So it wasn't surprising that these South Africans who were coming to the United States, particularly coming to Chicago, would choose to attend his church. I just think that it was very overwhelming for him to realize that over time he had influenced not only South Africans, but many Chicagoans in their understanding of what the struggle was about, and also their understanding of the connections between the kind of racism that Chicago had experienced and still experiences even today. And so he was a pivotal and I think a very powerful voice in the documentary.
Thank you. Now, while you focus in your documentary on the support of the Black community and white as well in a challenging apartheid, Blacks in the city, as you indicated, not only in the city, but across our country, were facing oppression and challenges for our own civil rights. What were some of the pushbacks, if any, of people in Chicago? Did you find that there were some who were not necessarily as on board with this effort as others, perhaps?
So even the organizers themselves found this. They knew early on that because of the kind of segregation and the kind of inequity that the city of Chicago faced, that they were going to have to do a lot of teaching and a lot of consciousness raising. And so part of their strategy was to make sure they would hold educational meetings to help people in Chicago understand why they are connected to someone, 8,000 miles away. One story they tell is in Chicago, every year we have what's called the Bud Billiken Day Parade. And it's a big parade on the south side of the city, really a back to school parade. Bud Billiken is a fictional character, but this is an event that's been going on. I think it's the biggest and the longest running Black parade, not just in the US, but probably maybe at least in the US. Maybe globally as well. And so they talk about how they would go to this parade and they'd have their signs, and their signs would talk about Free South Africa. And people would, along the parade route, would say, "Free South Africa, free us, free Chicago. We're still experiencing all this kind of racism with jobs and schools and things like that in our city. So why should we be concerned about Chicago?" And even in the documentary, you hear from Harry Lennox, who is a famous actor in the US and has played in several movies, big screen and small screen, say, if I could do it over again, I would not have spent any time on South Africa. I would have focused exclusively on what is happening in Chicago, because this is where my family still lives, even though he's based in Los Angeles now. He has a sister who still lives in Chicago. And so even to this day, he felt as though he would have done things differently. So I think while it is always admirable to hear from the people who really valued their time, it's also important to include that other perspective. Because I think we know that even during the civil rights movement, there was this other perspective of Black people who said, well, let's not push too hard. Let's just wait. These things will eventually happen for us. But it's really that minority of people who go out there and make it a minority of people.
Well, one of the things that I'm thinking about too, Ava, about your documentary is the connection of the union and helping to make a difference when it comes to the topic of divestiture or divestments and all that powerful move. And can you talk about the interview and the discussion that was occurring between people speaking about the United Auto Workers, catalytic converters, and how the connectivity between the unions in the US and South Africa helped to catapult the visibility around the issues to another level?
So Harold Rogers talks about that in the documentary, and he unfortunately is one of the four who has passed away. And he was also one of the lead persons in organizing Nelson Mandela's visit to Chicago in 1993. And so he explains it this way. He says, we have a lot of companies, GM, we know about Shell Oil, we know about Kodak, all these multinational companies that were doing business in South Africa, he felt like there was a natural relationship between the unions in South Africa and the unions in the United States. And that created opportunities for those union organizers to really get together and to share information. One of the things that Chicagoans would do is they would bring those union members. Moses Maikiso is one of those who's in the documentary. They would bring those union members as well as other South Africans to Chicago, and they would fundraise on their behalf. But more importantly, they felt it was critical for Chicagoans to hear from South Africans directly. And this was one of the reasons they would bring them to the city to talk about what life was like in South Africa. Because, the reality is, it's one thing to hear it from someone who read about it or heard about it, but it's another thing to hear it from somebody who actually is living it. And so that was one of their tactics as part of the educational endeavors that they did as well, to make sure that Chicagoans had a clearer understanding of what was at stake.
Thank you for that. I'm also I'm mindful of the fact that we will be opening up for Q&A shortly for those of you who are dying to ask questions. Another question for you, and I'm thinking about how the strategy around divestment was a key consideration and put a bright light on apartheid and what that meant and the global reaction to what was happening in that country. And in the context of the Juneteenth celebration and looking at the political efforts to take away the right to vote for many people of color that's running concurrently here, are there any lessons learned or key takeaways that from your documentary that you think warrant us thinking about as we are looking at what's happening here?
Absolutely. I think Prexy Nesbitt at the end of the documentary says it so well, and this is a phrase that's often used, and that is that the struggle continues, right? It doesn't end. So just because we now have a holiday called Juneteenth doesn't mean paying attention to other things in terms of voter suppression. And it can be exhausting, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is we can't get weary because what we've seen happen in the United States is that I think people thought after the Barack Obama administration that, okay, all these things that continue on this trajectory and things will continue to get better. And we saw with the Trump administration that didn't happen, that there were a lot of things that were being reversed and people's way of thinking also was being reversed. And so I think that's the lesson for Juneteenth today is this holiday as a federal holiday feels like it came out of nowhere, although we know people have been fighting for it for decades. And there are lots of celebrations going on in the United States today commemorating this, but we still have a lot of work to do, I think. And I think that's the lesson learned from the apartheid movement is that even though Blacks got the right to vote in South Africa, there is still disproportionate poverty among Black South Africans, colored South Africans. And when you go there, you see the disparity. It is so stark that it makes you wonder if apartheid is really over. I mean, the economic apartheid that is still there is so troubling. I mean, every time I go, I am left really really having mixed feelings about the political part of, yes, we have, Black people in parliament and we have Black political parties, many of them in South Africa, but there's still a lot of work to do as it relates to the economic inequalities that still exist. And I would say that connection, applies to the US, right? Is there still a lot of work to be done as it relates to the economic inequalities that we're still working on today?
Thank you. Because it is now 12:21 to me, 7:21 to you. I know that as a next step, Jazz would like to turn over the Q&A
Yes.
to your members. So I will stop for now and thank you so much for this opportunity to interview Ava for a period of your program. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you,
Yes, and
Ava.
Jazz, thank you.
We're now opening the floor to everyone in the Zoom to ask questions towards Dr. Greenwell. And please type ** hands up into the chat so that Liz can cue the people. Let's see, do we have any questions there? Well, actually, before people type in their questions with their * hand up, my biggest takeaway actually from your documentary, Ava, and from what you've also said, is that let people who lived the story tell the story. And this is always something that I always tell everybody, because that is so much valuable knowledge and information. And without that, moving forward is very, very slow or even very hard. So that is my personal biggest takeaway of your movie. Liz, how was the queue?
We have one person in the
Jamie.
queue. Jamie?
Yes. Jamie, please give us your question.
I actually have a whole page of questions, but I'll start with,
Good.
let's see, what do I want to ask first? Watching the film, I saw
How do
so
I get
many.
it on
Oh.
audio and
Rachel, would you
Okay.
please turn off your microphone? Thank
There you
you.
go. So watching the film, I just realized that there's so much that today's activists can learn from it. But I'd be curious to see what technique, I guess, or approach you thought was the most effective then, but also what you might think would be the most effective today to try and effect change.
So I think one of the most effective things was teaching people why it matters. What is the connection between a city or country that is 8,000 miles from you? Some people could automatically see the connection with the Jim Crow South. And I think you heard that from some of the people in the documentary, but others really had to be taught. I think we're on the verge, as we talk about, for example, in the United States now, there's a lot of conversation about critical race theory, and some states that are actually backtracking and saying we shouldn't be teaching, this topic to school children. Well, I think we want to be able to teach as much as possible so that people can make decisions about their future. And so that teaching part, I think, is so, so critical, because that is what helps some people really begin to see that these systems aren't just in the United States, they're all over the world. I mean, when you travel to other countries in South Africa, when you travel to other places in the world, to India, to all these places, you see these various systems that pit one group against another. And when you see those connections, I think it makes you say, what can I do, to actually make a difference? I think the other thing that was really also important to me is, typically in the United States, it's the East Coast and the West Coast that get a lot of publicity about the things that they are doing for these various movements, in particular as it relates to South Africa. And so one of my goals as a filmmaker and as a Chicago native was to make sure that Chicago got its just due, and the Midwest in particular. You see in there also Detroit, the fact that Nelson Mandela actually went to Detroit before going to Chicago. And so these are cities, when people think about Chicago, they kind of think about, as our previous president always only talked about the violence in Chicago. And yes, there is violence, but there's also violence in a lot of other cities as well. And there are also a lot of good things that are going on. So the key is that balance, I think, that balanced approach. We want to address those inequities that go on, and we want to address, however, the root causes of that violence. And that's really the thing that we're not really addressing as much in this city, is the root causes of those things. And I think, to your question, Jamie, about what can a current day activist group learn, is I think that education has to be top of mind, but then in addition to the education, there has to be some action. And the action can vary. Not everybody is built to necessarily go out and protest. Some people are better at doing other things, at working behind the scenes. And so I would say, let's let people figure out what works best for them, and let's encourage them to actually do that action.
Thank you very much, Ava, and thank you, Jamie. Unfortunately, our time is a little bit limited today, and also the time of Ava. Ava, you're welcome to stay longer on board, but as I gathered, you're totally busy with many Juneteenth celebrations going on today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Sharon, who did the Q&A today. And I wish your group well in terms of your discussions and your takeaways. And I certainly will love to hear whatever the follow-up is as a result of the film. One other thing I'll just leave you with as it relates to education, and that is trying to get this documentary in front of as many young people as possible, because we are on the verge of, having this information lost, especially those 4 people. Had I not interviewed them, I was probably the last person to talk to them about their role in the movement. And so any way that I can get this documentary shown to young people, I think is really important, because once they know this history, they can really build upon it. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We will now be creating randomly chosen breakout rooms, which will be hosted by Miriam, Abby, Stacy, Liz, Zachary, and myself for about a duration of 15 minutes. And after that, we will meet again in the main room. Liz, are we ready?
Just a second, because since I have to assign particular mods, I can't randomly assign the people in the rooms. I have to manually do that. So just one moment.
Okay, no problem.
Basically, we say yes when we're asked to join a room, correct?
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Who else is dealing with heat waves today? Hand up.
Everyone in Switzerland, obviously. Okay.
Switzerland, Germany.
I'm going to send everyone to a breakout room. Wish me luck. Press accept, please. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, Jess.
Hello.
Sharon and I were chatting, and I was like, oh no, I have to bring everybody back.
Yes. That minor detail.
Yeah. We'll give everyone a chance to get back in here.
That woman's voice is really creepy. The recording in progress person.
Yes.
Recording in progress.
Absolutely true.
I don't like computerized voices. They're always very creepy to me.
Absolutely. So, do we have everybody back, Liz?
It looks like yes, we do.
Okay. Well, welcome back. I hope you all had an interesting discussion going on within your breakout rooms. I can say I definitely had a great time. Let's all hear what information, knowledge, and experiences have been shared. Why don't we start with Miriam? Miriam, what is your wonderful mosaic of people?
Well, our mosaic, unfortunately, one of the 2 other people had technical problems and wasn't able to participate. So we had a 2-person dialogue, and one of us hadn't yet seen the film, so we couldn't really talk about the film together, but we did share a lot of thoughts. So what we discovered was that the anti-apartheid movement in the United States, which was very active apparently in the time after I stopped living in the States, and when the other person in the group was too small to have been participating. So we both have knowledge about it, but we have knowledge of other things. We're both very active in other ways. In terms of the role of the film, and I'm not following the questions now in a linear way, but I wanted to talk about what we felt the film or the discussion about the film brought to us was how activism today is more necessary than ever. We can't assume that because we have a Juneteenth now as a holiday, or that because we have had an African-American president, that everything is resolved. We have a lot of things to work on, and that political action, particularly in a time of such opposition, intransigence, gridlock, whatever you want to call it, really behooves us all to not lose faith and not lose the energy that we need to continue to look for social and racial justice. So when we talked about what Juneteenth means to us, we both agreed that it was fantastic that it was now an official holiday and that President Biden has made it such and brought the attention to it that it needs. I personally expressed some ambivalence, some concern that I have that this happened for many people so suddenly, so abruptly, perhaps they weren't ready for it. And I feel that giving meaning to this holiday for really everybody in America, not just the people, and I don't want to say it in a way that sounds like I'm creating a two levels, but there are some people who have always celebrated Juneteenth and some people who now have a day off from work. And for those people who don't know why they are having a day off from work, they need to be brought into a process which hasn't yet happened for them, probably. And so I was a little bit ambivalent about the holiday not being given the meaning that it needs. So I hope that it will be have that opportunity. In terms of adjective to the film, I personally was very informed by the film. I was very impressed by the tenacity and the spirit of the people who participated in those movements, both in Chicago and in South Africa. And I was inspired by their energy and by their spirit.
Great.
So that's our little report.
Nice.
Thank you very much, Miriam. That's very nice, especially emphasizing the part that you just mentioned about some people who always celebrated Juneteenth and know the importance and significance of it, and the others that just suddenly have a day off. And those are the ones we also need to educate. So that's a very good input. Thank you very much. Abby, you're up next. Your microphone is muted.
Good evening, folks. I'm Abby Collins, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening, especially since I have maintained very close ties to South Africa for the past 20 or so years. My son is South African. I spent many years there as an activist and journalist. I trained local journalists on how to cover their second democratic election in history. And I've interviewed 3 South African presidents. And my son, of course, is South African. In any case, in our breakout session, I had the great honor of being joined by TJ, who is from Kuznach, just outside of Zurich, or she's residing there. And then also Candace, who is our international chair of Democrats Abroad and based in Munich. And unfortunately, Candace had to take off, but I still see TJ here. And interestingly, they had very opposite experiences with Juneteenth. Candace had mentioned that she had not ever been aware of Juneteenth until moving to Germany. And that is where she had experienced it. Whereas TJ, of course, has had many occasions to celebrate the holiday, now the official holiday, but it's always been a holiday since 1866, and those who are among the Black community and their allies. And I feel like, on a side note, it's been a long time coming. I mean, 155 years, kind of tongue in cheek, that we finally have this as a holiday. But unfortunately, neither had seen the documentary, but had a lot of opinions as to the content of this. So it created some lively discussion. Candace described, we weren't able to provide an adjective to the documentary, but so I asked them in regards to some adjectives describing Juneteenth. And Candace had brought forth this feeling of, she said it wasn't an adjective, but she got a sense of reconciliation. And for TJ, she had mentioned in years past that whenever Juneteenth came around, she would kind of a play on the words of Blackish instead of free-ish, which I thought was very apropos because both agreed that this is just the start of dialogue and conversation in regards to this subject matter. It is like a springboard now on a national scale. What this really, the real significance of this occasion that people have been celebrating for so long, a small percentage of the country. And now we have this great awareness that we are able to foster on a national scale, what Juneteenth means. And so in essence, we ran out of time, but again, TJ was able to contribute some things that they do on the day, like incorporating food. She wants her son, who is half German and half African American, to very much be, to not only have an awareness, but also they as a family be a catalyst for opening the dialogue, which is something I can very much appreciate, because I feel like everyone in this room has the opportunity now to be an educator on this subject. And with that said, I'll pass the mic to the next person.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Abby. And I definitely have to connect you directly with Sharon, because I think the both of you have a lot in common and a lot to share as well. And you also brought it straight to the point. We all are responsible to bring out the education and the knowledge to everybody. And with everything we learn, even within this Zoom, I'm sure that each and every one of us just learned even a little bit, which we can present to somebody else in our own surrounding. So next up, as one of our breakout room hosts, we have Zachary. Zachary, what have you experienced?
Hey, thank you very much. My name is Zachary Bailey. And the wonderful people that I got to talk to in my breakout room said when they were talking about the documentary that it really made them think about the differences in local versus global involvement, how we're all people, I mean, especially a lot of people in this Zoom room who are rooted into one place, but we end up, moving and living in another place. And we kind of think about both of these as we remain politically engaged, and how we can have a involvement and an impact across a whole global area as well. And then have, all these global connections that happen. And yeah, very interesting from the documentary to see people enact, also in a very small area, but have a really outsized impact on the world. Then we also talked a little bit about Juneteenth, our newest national holiday. And they mentioned that it's definitely something that's long overdue in this country. Just kind of echoing what other people have said, for sure. And that they'd prefer to see something go a lot further, perhaps with reparations, or other forms of the injustices that have long been held against the Black people to be righted. And we also talked a little bit about this, where we don't want this holiday to be something that's watered down. We have a lot of different holidays right now, and that's definitely, I thought that was a very good point, that we have Martin Luther, they said that we have Martin Luther King Jr. Day every year now, but we don't really, for a lot of people, it's still just another day off, and it's not as much of a reflection on the civil rights history of the United States, and that it's very important that we impart a lot of the significance of this holiday onto our youth. So,
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Zachary. And that actually what you just said reminds me of a quote by Representative Carolyn Maloney, who's also a Democrat in the New York district. She said, "Our federal holidays are purposely few in number and recognize the most important milestones." So that kind of sums it up, I would say. Thank you, Zach. Next up, we have Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy. In my breakout room, one of our members had a technical difficulty and could not participate auditorily. So unfortunately, that was the case. But Jamie and I had a very nice discussion. And I think both of us were not particularly involved at the time. Jamie mentioned she was in college. I was in high school with the movement for Free South Africa and to free Nelson Mandela. However, we were both aware of it, and at her university, there was a movement among student activists to divest from South Africa, which eventually was successful. So that's good. One of the main themes that we talked about was the role of youth nowadays in global movements, and how we didn't see a lot of young people involved in that movement. Maybe there were at the time, but not particularly represented in the documentary. And how we see a lot of young people involved in global movements now for environmental justice, social justice, equity. And we think that that's a really great thing, is to have more young people involved, and how an opportunity, Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, gives us a great opportunity to have young people really take the lead in educating them and helping them move our society forward in a more positive direction. So, and we talked a lot about voting and voter suppression. So continuing theme.
Great. Thank you very much, Stacy. And yes, we might have achieved one major goal: recognition of Juneteenth as a federal holiday as well. But as you also just said, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And where to start? With our youth. And that is actually really, really good. Liz, how about your group?
As I was breaking everybody out, I was able to assign 3 people to each room, and that left just Sharon and me in the main room, and we just chatted. So
We took a pass.
Okay, good. Then I'll talk about my lovely group that we had here. And these were people also from Switzerland, one being American, one being Swiss, as I might recollect. The most interesting part was when we came down to the adjectives, and there were adjectives that were a bit more bigger and a bit more broader. And everybody who knows me knows that I like to be a bit extra sometimes. So that's why I like them a lot. Some of them were like political action inducing, social consciousness awakening, and connectivity. And I think those are very, very strong and powerful words being used as adjectives to sum up your feeling after watching the documentary or being even involved with that topic. We talked about a book called The Great Migration by Isabel Wilkinson, and that is something I definitely will be looking up. It is mainly focused upon the history of enslaved people being, shipped to Chicago and put on their path that they didn't have to go. So I definitely will be looking up that book. There was another very interesting thing that we heard so many times today, was a long time coming for this holiday. So everybody in this call seems to be feeling the same relief in a way, the same feeling. And it seems to be natural that we feel that way. That is also something very nice. It's not like somebody's pressing this holiday upon us, but it's being recognized and embraced by warmth. So yeah, we did have a very, very good conversation. So thank you very much for that. And well, thank you all for joining into the breakout rooms. As I mentioned earlier, our time is a little bit limited because I also know that Sharon has a lot of celebrating to do today. Yeah, so Sharon Hatchett and I have known each other over, well, for many years, and I've always been inspired by her work and dedication in spreading knowledge and education. Sharon, TiBA. TiBA, Together is Better Alliance, is one of many of your engagements, which are dear and near to your heart. Can you introduce TiBA to us a little bit more and better, and how we maybe can contribute or even work together in spreading the word, spreading experiences, sharing knowledge? Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm Sharon Hatchett, as you know, president of Together is Better Alliance, and there's a spot there on the screen for LG Style, something or other. That's our director of engagement, Amania Drain. I don't know, since she's driving, if she'll join in or not. But Together is Better Alliance, we were formed in 2018, in part because of the desire to promote change. And as you know, if you check out our website, by the way, togethersbetteralliance.org, you can find our mission statement, which is committed to fostering knowledge and engagement that will break down resistance to confronting our shared legacy of slavery. We who are on the board of TiBA, we call it that, came up with the name after a lot of consideration, because we realized that the issue of systemic and historic racism is a big elephant in the room that no one organization can take on. And so we strategically determined that it's best for us to look at the focus on education. But in doing so, and as part of our journey of sharing, and I'll get to the impetus of how we came together, we started to connect with other organizations that were dedicated to racial justice. And we have formed relationships with them because we feel that we can all be effective if we take our own respective bites at that big elephant in the room called systemic racism. And so ours is education, but we have formed alliances with other organizations that are doing great work. And so we collaborate, we have joint calls together, and our objective is to support each other's efforts. So for example, one such alliance partner is Bridging the Black-White Divide. It's formed by a Black pastor who's also partnered with a white pastor from the South, who calls himself a recovering racist from the Jim Crow South, who happened to end up being a roommate with a Black student, which he'd never had to do before, but went from the suburbs of Chicago to see Dr. King, and that impacted his life, and he has become a stalwart supporter of the rights of Black people and others, and their focus is on how do you get Black leadership in city government. Pete's and Social Justice is another group. So by us coming together, we have some focused on redlining, another dealing with healing everyday racism in our schools. It's up in the North Shore of Chicago at the New Trier School, which is predominantly white, and some of the students living at ivory tower type environment were not prepared when they went off to college to understand how to engage with people who weren't white. And so I'm assuming they came back with a lot of missteps, because some came back saying I wasn't prepared, school, for face these challenges. The bottom line is we are doing great things together. We have collaborated predominantly in the Chicago metropolitan area, but with the use of technology, we have relationships beyond Chicago. For example, we have working with a group in Athens, Georgia, who asked us to moderate a conversation within their community. California, the West Coast, one of our board members, he's a civil rights activist, and he holds intimate dialogues with people around Blacks telling their story for a few minutes about when they first encountered racism and understanding they were different. and some of the challenges so that whites can hear them. We then also, they ask whites to speak about when they first became aware. What are they doing? Do they have white friends? And encouraging honest conversations. It's a global call. And if any of you are interested, you can let Lee, Jazz know, in which case we're happy to share and connect you with that information. But we're also focused strategically on social justice equity audits within our organization. 2 of our board members are educators, and we are realizing that in these school systems, without diversity, students of color are being subjected to biases. They're not given the opportunities to thrive necessarily. And it may not be that they're intentionally having this happen, but we are helping them understand how to conduct a social justice equity audit, to look at data points, to understand how the discrimination or mistreatment of kids of color is handled as compared to white students who may not be seeing that kind of data points. And so we are giving them all the ammunition they need to go out and engage with their students. We're doing the same for the northern suburb that we talked about earlier that has all white students, to promote statistical data and how you benefit and grow better if you have diversity within your group. So those are some of the examples. The other thing that we're doing is using, because of the pandemic, we have built incredible relationships with people by coming together and doing tours of historic locations like the museum in Montgomery, Alabama. With the pandemic, we have had to discontinue that, but we have created virtual tours so that you can experience the museum online, and we're in our trial run. So if you go on our site, you'll see that under the tour section, and we're doing others. We also have the board member who's dealing with the social justice equity audit. We're doing conversation series. It's not our site, but Jasmine has that detail. And we, for example, we'll have on July 13th, Dr. Farmer Hinton talking about educational inequities and ways to rebuild. On October 13th, Richard Rothstein, who's the author of a book called Color of Law, will be speaking, and we have been collaborating with major libraries around the Chicago area, a 30 library collaboration for one engagement, and now 50 library collaboration where people can join us for that kind of a program. So, if you want more information, we would welcome you engaging with us with the use of technology, Zoom or whatever. There's ways to connect with us. Amania is on our call, and I don't know that she can talk because she's driving, but we are very committed to utilizing dialogue and information, and we have data points on our website. And if anyone wishes to volunteer and have topics that you'd like to put on our site or learn more how to connect with us in some of our virtual and real-time programming, we welcome it. So I will stop at that.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharon, for introducing TiBA, Together is Better Alliance. Also, thank you very much for introducing Dr. Ava Thompson Greenwell to our group, and also the documentary, and also for your time on probably one of the most busiest days of the year for you.
It is, but this matters. We feel honored to spend time with you because while we are not a political organization on a personal level, I too am a Democrat, and the work that you're doing matters. And I do hope that we have an opportunity to collaborate, because there is a documentary I've shared with Jazz that I feel warrants consideration, but that's something we can discuss offline. But thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you too. Our member and volunteer Abby has strong ties to South Africa and prepared a poem for us.
Wonderful.
Abby, would you like to read it out loud for us, please?
Actually, it's not exactly a poem. They are quotes from the author and activist Stephen Biko, who was considered one of the forebearers of the Black consciousness movement. I don't know if any of you recall a film called Cry Freedom, which features his life. It was released in 1988. Unfortunately, Stephen Biko died while in exile in his own country. when he was age 30 at the hands of police who in essence beat him to death, and many attest that he was tortured. He wrote many essays that were passed secretly to audiences in South Africa that were often read at funeral processions, because it was the only time that folks in South Africa could actually gather in public demonstration. And so it was under the guise of funeral processions. And he wrote a book called I Write What I Like. And what I did is I just curated a couple of quotes from him, particularly because of he was a catalyst for people in his nation and around the world in seeing the importance of their Blackness. And so I'll start with the first quote. I've picked three. And he stated, and this was more than 50 years ago, he writes, "Merely by describing yourself as Black, you have started on a road towards emancipation. You have committed yourself to fight against all forces that seek to use your Blackness as a stamp that marks you out as a subservient being." Then he later continues to write, "The fact that apartheid has been tied up with white supremacy, capitalist exploitation, and deliberate oppression makes the problem much more complex. Material want is bad enough, but coupled with spiritual poverty, it kills." And the last quote I wanted to read, in essence, states, "In a bid for change, we have to take off our coats, be prepared to lose our comfort and security, our jobs and positions of prestige, and our families. A struggle without casualties is no struggle." And he gave his life for this struggle, which in essence, I don't want to say he was a martyr, but truly an inspiration to a nation, including Mandela, who was incarcerated already by that time. And then I wanted to end on one final quote, which was said just this past Wednesday by our own president. I felt like for me, it was the highlight of his press conference at the Geneva summit. And he states, Joe Biden said at a press conference, he said, "How could I be the president of the United States of America and not speak against the violation of human rights? We are uniquely the product of an idea. You've heard me say this before again and again, and I'm going to keep saying it. What's that idea? We don't derive our rights from the government. We possess them because we are born, period. We yield them to a government. We hold these truths self-evident that all men and women are created equal. We haven't lived up to it completely, but we've always widened the arc of commitment and included more and more people." So again, yes, we have a ways to go. It started decades and decades and decades ago. Hopefully, this movement will not exceed the time that already has been sacrificed, I feel. So I'll leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Avi. Those were some very, very inspirational quotes. And yes, maybe you can send them to us as well, or to Liz. And then in the follow-up, we can also present these to everybody who missed out on the call. Thank you again, Avi. Thank you all. So let's dive into a little bit of fun here, because we still have a little fun Juneteenth trivia quiz. Maybe it's best if everybody just grabs a piece of paper and a pen. It doesn't need to be really fancy, just a regular piece of paper, pen, or your phone. What we are doing is we're going to run through 10 questions that I think is very appropriate to today, and see how good our knowledge is on this game. I did the test myself. I have to admit, I only had 75% correct. Shame on me. So we never cease to learn and explore knowledge. So are we ready? Does everybody have a piece of paper and pen? Let's See shaking hands, shaking phones. Great. Let's start off. Juneteenth commemorates June 19, 1865, the day Union General Gordon Granger informed slaves or enslaved people of their emancipation from slavery. In what town did this event take place? Was it A, Lafayette, Louisiana, B, Montgomery, Alabama, C, Brunswick, Georgia, or D, Galveston, Texas? You could just write A, B, C, or D. Okay. If anybody needs a question repeated, please just, yeah, or do that. Please just
I'll
say
write
it
it
out
on a
loud.
piece of paper, hold it up.
Okay. Second question. Granger's announcement actually came almost 3 years after the famous executive order abolishing slavery, issued by then President Abraham Lincoln. What was this order called? A, the Freedom Order, B, the Emancipation Proclamation, C, the Abolition, or D, the Edict of Liberation? So far, I think that is still pretty easy. Number 3, Lincoln's executive order outlawed slavery in rebel states, but not Union states. What 2 Union border states continued to practice slavery up until the constitutional abolition of slavery in 1865? Was it A, Delaware and Maryland, B, Kentucky and Missouri, C, Delaware and Kentucky, or D, Maryland and Missouri? I got that one wrong. Shall I repeat it one more time?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. Lincoln's executive order outlawed slavery in rebel states, but not Union states. What 2 Union border states continued to practice slavery up until the constitutional abolition of slavery in 1865? A, Delaware and Maryland, B, Kentucky and Missouri, C, Delaware and Kentucky, or D, Maryland and Missouri? This is almost like Who's Going to Be the Next Millionaire? What's that show called?
Who wants to be a millionaire?
Yeah, who wants to be?
Exactly. Okay, question number 4. Which constitutional amendment officially abolished slavery across the United States? Was it A, the 4th Amendment, B, the 9th Amendment, C, the 13th Amendment, or D, the 16th Amendment? Okay. Proceeding to the next question. Approximately how many slaves were estimated to be in the United States in the early 1860s before slavery was outlawed? Was it A, around 1.2 million, B, 2.4 million, C, 3.5 million, or D, 3.9 million?
Give me those numbers again.
Yes, please. Was it A, approximately 1.2 million, B, 2.4 million, C, 3.5 million, or D, 3.9 million? Okay, proceeding to next question, 6 out of 10. Which state was the first to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday? Was it A, New York, B, Connecticut, C, Texas, or D, Georgia? Stacy, I know you know this one. Okay, question number 7. Is Juneteenth a federal holiday? A, yes, B, no, C, it used to be, but is not anymore, or D, it cannot be a federal holiday.
I wonder.
Might be a trick question. Number 8, a revised red, white, and blue flag honoring Juneteenth was introduced in 2000. What symbol is at the center of the flag? Was it A, a star, B, an octagon, C, a diamond, or D, a crescent moon? Shall I repeat it again? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes. So
Sorry.
was it a star as answer number 1, A, or B, an octagon, C, a diamond, or D, a crescent moon? Number 9. What's another name often used to commemorate Juneteenth? A, Peace Day, B, Freedom Day, C, Power Day, or D, Election Day, Equality Day? A, Peace Day, B, Freedom Day, C, Power Day, or D, Equality Day? Last question, might be a trick question. Which of the following former US presidents did not commemorate Juneteenth with either a presidential proclamation or remark during their administration? Was it A, former President Donald Trump, B, former President Barack Obama, C, former President Bill Clinton, or D, former none of the above?
Just a point of clarity, for none of the above, do you mean that none of them did anything to recognize Juneteenth, or do you mean that all of them?
That all of them did not, not all of them, or not one of them did not commemorate Juneteenth? Okay, so we're at the end of the 10 questions. Some of them were very, very easy, in my point of view. Some of them I also had to think hard and long. So here are the answers. Question number 1, the correct answer is, drumroll, D, Galveston, Texas.
Galveston, Texas.
Great. Number 2, the correct answer is B, the Emancipation Proclamation. Number 3, the correct answer is Delaware and Kentucky.
Wow.
Number 4,
Sorry, what letter was that?
that was
letter
number
was-
C.
C.
C, yes.
Thank you.
Question number 4, the correct answer is letter number C, the 13th Amendment.
Yay.
Question number 5, the correct answer is D, 3.9 million.
Yay.
Question number 6, the correct answer is letter C, Texas.
Texas.
Question number 7, the correct answer is A, yes. Number 8, the correct answer is letter C, a star. Number 9, the correct answer is B.
A was an octagon, correct?
A
I
star.
thought A was a star.
A is a
Yeah.
star.
So if C is the correct answer, then it's not a
That's
star.
a diamond.
No, it's a star.
So
Yeah,
there's the
I
correct-
think, so the correct answer is A.
A,
Okay.
yes. A,
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
yes. Number 9 is the correct answer, B, Freedom Day. And number 10, it's none of the above, D.
Yay.
So,
I only missed 2.
you missed 2, okay, great.
I missed
So
2. Yeah.
you can all turn on your microphones if you like. Is there anybody in the Zoom who got everything correct? And I'm asking this because Liz, our co-chair, has prizes to give away, buttons from our Democrats Abroad Black Caucus.
Abby, did you win them all?
I got them all. Yes.
All right,
Abby got them
Abby.
all?
Yep.
Yay,
Congratulations.
great. So
And
you get a pin.
I think Zachary was saying yes too. Was I mistaken?
Yeah,
Outstanding.
I did get them all correct, but
Wow.
I have 2 sets of buttons, Zach. So
Ah.
you and Abby can both win buttons.
oh,
Fabulous.
Great, great. Thank you very much. So I also only missed out on 2 or 3 questions there, I think, but it also showed me that there's sometimes some trick questions that we just trip over, and sometimes there is bits and pieces, or there are bits and pieces that we do or that we are able to look up, read up, and educate ourselves. And this is the wonderful thing called internet, what we could use. And in today's day and age, that is lovely. Or if not, if we need more help and more education, we always can go back to Together is Better Alliance, because they're doing a fantastic job in educating, especially on these topics. We're nearly at the end of our today's Zoom. You could definitely be informed and in touch with all of our events by simply visiting our website, www.democratsabroad.org/ch events, _events, sorry. And if you want to be in touch, or if you want to get in touch with Sharon through TiBA, then visit the website www.togetherisbetteralliance.org. And
Yeah,
please,
we have an email at info@togetherisbetteralliance.org. So we'd love to hear from you and are truly honored to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sharon. And please, please share the movie, share what you've learned, what you've experienced in this Zoom call, because the more we share knowledge, the more steps forward we all can go together. Liz, is there anything that
Yes.
you'd like to add as well?
No, I was thrilled with this event. I'm so glad that the people who are here were able to join us. I know that the weather probably kept some people outdoors trying to stay cool instead of staying inside connected to the internet. So thank you for everyone who has attended. And yes, please spread the word about the documentary, about Together is Better, and about Democrats Abroad.
Definitely. And again, on my behalf, thank you, Sharon, for your time and for your knowledge. Thank you also to Dr. Ava Thompson Greenwell, who's already left us today. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Miriam, Zachary. Everybody who joined today and made this Juneteenth celebration quite a unique one for us over here overseas. And I just saw that one of my cousins from the US just joined in. Hi, Tony. Thank you again very much. Happy Juneteenth all the way over there to the States to you too, Tony. And if there's nothing more to say, then let's all just dive into a pool and cool off.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Happy
Juneteenth. Enjoy your celebrations for those who have more days left than we do over here.
Yes.
Happy Juneteenth.
Still have time.
We have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.
Danke, das war so schön.
All righty.
Yeah, that went pretty
Good
well.
job.
Liz.
It went well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much also again for your technical support.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. Good. Well,
Okay.
I need
Be
to
safe,
out. Yeah, be safe.
All right. Well, yeah, try to stay cool. Enjoy the rest of your Juneteenth, Amania, and I will talk to you later.
Exactly.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Amania. Bye.